Chapter 371. Qing Xian Xiong couldn't help but stomp his foot and said, "Let's go." Today, even if the ninth ancestor of the Azure Mystery Ancient Kingdom were to emerge, it wouldn't be enough to contend with the War God Temple ancestor. Unless a legendary, long-slumbering powerhouse of their Azure Mystery Ancient Kingdom were to emerge, there was no way to change the current situation. Want to leave? However, the always leisurely Li Qiye said naturally at this moment. Since you've come, don't think about going back. As soon as Li Qiye's words came out, many heroes and marquises observing the battle exchanged glances. As for the Baozheng human emperor and Qing Xian Xiong, their expressions changed drastically. "Little brat, don't overplay your hand," Qing Xian Xiong said coldly. "Today, I'm not afraid of your cleansing incense ancient sect, I'm merely giving the War God Temple some face." Although he couldn't contend with an existence like the War God Temple ancestor, as the national preceptor of the Azure Mystery Ancient Kingdom, he fundamentally didn't take the cleansing incense ancient sect seriously, and even less so Li Qiye. "The War God Temple's face," Li Qiye said calmly and casually. "Even without the War God Temple, I would still slaughter you all today. Those who offend me will be killed without mercy. Even if they are from a lineage established after an immortal emperor." At this time, many people thought Li Qiye was too arrogant. After gaining the support of the War God Temple, he had become utterly lawless and self-important. However, out of fear of an existence like Mu Shen, no one dared to say anything more. Qing Xian Xiong glanced at Mu Shen, but Mu Shen showed no attitude. He stared intently at Li Qiye, his eyes sharp. He said coldly, "Little brat, we want to leave. Can you alone stop us? Wipe them out." Li Qiye didn't even bother to look at Qing Xian Xiong. He said slowly, "Let the people of the Great Territory know, those who offend me will be killed without mercy." As soon as Li Qiye's words fell, no one immediately moved. Gu Tiesho was briefly stunned. At this moment, it was awkward for him to attack, but also awkward not to. Then, Gu Tiesho gritted his teeth and shouted, "Charge! Kill them all! Has the cleansing incense ancient sect gone mad? After barely escaping a catastrophe, they actually want to counterattack." A sect master couldn't help but mutter, "With your cleansing incense ancient sect alone?" Qing Xian Xiong sneered. At this moment, the Baozheng human emperor's eyes also grew cold. If the War God Temple didn't intervene, their more than 10,000 Holy Heaven sect powerhouses would absolutely wipe out these people. "I wasn't talking about you." Li Qiye shook his head at Gu Tiesho, waved his hand, signaling the disciples of the cleansing incense ancient sect to stop. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Just as Li Qiye finished speaking, 4 stone giants descended from the sky. In an instant, the 4 stone giants landed beside Li Qiye, surrounding his 4 war bronze chariot. Upon seeing the 4 stone giants descend from the sky, the Sun-Will Demon Emperor was instantly moved, almost exclaiming aloud. Even Mu Shen couldn't help but be moved. His gaze focused, incredibly profound, and he muttered, "The 4 war stone guards. Today, I shall let you witness the heritage of my cleansing incense ancient sect." Li Qiye stood calmly on the 4 war bronze chariot and said placidly, "Wipe them out. Kill." The 4 stone giants actually spoke in the human language. They moved in an instant. As the 4 stone giants took action, they stepped forward, and instantly, colossal figures stomped down. Open array. Their feet were like the heavens. The Baozheng human emperor's expression changed drastically. He shouted hysterically, commanding his disciples, "OM!" The grand array opened. The more than 10,000 iron cavalry of the Holy Heaven sect roared hysterically, "Kill!" In an instant, thick, divine sword light shot up to the sky. They wanted to block the massive feet descending from the sky. Rumble, rumble, rumble. But a sound of the heavens collapsing and earth splitting rang out. Clang, clang, clang. All the thick divine swords snapped under the massive feet. They simply couldn't block these 4 stone feet. Ah! A moment later, screams echoed through the sky. Blood rained down everywhere. In an instant, as the massive feet stomped down, the grand array shattered. More than 1,000 Holy Heaven sect powerhouses were crushed into pulp on the spot. At this moment, no matter what kind of treasure artifact or external esoteric weapon, none were a match for the 4 stone giants. Retreat, retreat, retreat. The Baosheng human emperor's expression changed drastically. He had greatly underestimated the terrifying nature of these 4 stone giants. He opened his Dao platform and Dao gate, ordering the iron cavalry to immediately retreat through the Dao gate, teleporting away from this place, reigning over the 9 worlds, sweeping across the 8 desolates. Even though Li Qiye's expression was calm and leisurely, his heart couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. He remembered those years when his 4-war bronze chariot rolled forth, with the 4-war stone guards escorting him on the left and right, fighting a bloody battle until the very end in the Immortal slaying campaign, until the heavens crumbled. How exhilarating that battle was, where countless legendary existences fell one after another. What soaring ambition in that Immortal slaying campaign. Today, he saw the heroic ideal of those years once again. Boom. A loud sound rang out. The Dao platform, supported by countless jade essence stones, began to collapse. The 4 stone giants would not let the Holy Heaven sect's iron cavalry retreat. 1 stone giant attacked. 1 foot stomped down, intent on shattering the Dao platform. Even if the jade essence stones on the Dao platform spewed out infinite heaven and earth spiritual energy, it still couldn't stop this massive foot kill. Seeing this scene, the Baosheng human emperor's eyes turned red. He roared hysterically. Instantly, an imperial might surged to the sky. He grasped an emperor artifact. The imperial will and immortal might transformed into a battle mace, which he fiercely swung at the stone giant with an invincible posture. As the emperor artifact emerged, the imperial might was sky-high. Countless people couldn't help but shiver. One must know that once struck by the imperial will, no matter how powerful, one would undoubtedly die. Clang. However, at this moment, the stone giant was enveloped by Dao laws, like a star river shooting up to the sky. Like a heavenly waterfall surging against the heavens. Divine chains of Dao laws wrapped around the stone giant's hand. At this moment, the stone giant's massive hand fiercely struck out. With one strike, the heaven and earth opened, chaos faintly appeared, the sun and moon shattered, and the great Dao fractured. With one strike, even an ancient saint couldn't help but tremble. Their legs turning to jelly. Boom. The stone giant's colossal hand, wrapped in divine chains of Dao laws, struck straight at the battle mace formed by imperial will and immortal might. Following a loud sound, the sky shattered. The stone giant staggered slightly, but the battle mace was struck until its luster dimmed. The imperial will and immortal might were instantly greatly depleted. This frightened the Baosheng human emperor, who used the emperor artifact to shield himself and save his life. His emperor artifact simply couldn't slay the stone giant before him. What is this thing? Seeing this scene, everyone was shaken. The stone giant could fight against imperial will and immortal might, yet it couldn't be slain. This was truly a powerhouse of legend. Old man Xiong, what are you waiting for? At this moment, even the Baosheng human emperor's face was pale. He yelled loudly at Qing Xianxiong. Go. At this time, Qing Xianxiong was also scared pale. He roared loudly. He didn't hesitate to deplete a large amount of his blood energy, summoning the immortal treasure imperial artifact he brought. OM. A divine bridge arose. The light of the divine bridge flashed, instantly sweeping up a large number of the Holy Heaven sect's iron cavalry. In a flash, it saved the disciples of the Holy Heaven sect who were surrounded and being slaughtered by the 4 stone giants. This was an Immortal Emperor True artifact. This Immortal Emperor True artifact belonged to an external esoteric treasure, extremely heaven-defying for escaping. Once this treasure was summoned, no one could keep them. The Azure Heaven Immortal Bridge. As soon as Li Qiye saw this Immortal Emperor-grade external esoteric treasure, his eyes narrowed, and he shouted. Seize it. Boom. A loud sound. As Li Qiye's order was given, the 4 stone giants linked hands. Their 4 hands instantly formed an absolute space. Slamming down towards the Azure Heaven Immortal Bridge, intent on seizing this immortal emperor-grade external esoteric treasure. Before the 4 stone giants could suppress the Azure Heaven Immortal Bridge, Xianxia, who controlled it, desperately spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, he no longer cared about anything else. If he remained, there was only death. He spat out his extremely precious longevity blood, dyeing the Azure Heaven Immortal Bridge red. The Immortal Bridge instantly emitted sky-high immortal light, instantly blocking the absolute space. Unleashed by the 4 stone giants. Go. At this moment, Xianxia no longer cared about the other Holy Heaven sect disciples who hadn't been saved. The Azure Heaven Immortal Bridge swept up, taking himself, the Baozheng human emperor, and over 1,000 Holy Heaven sect disciples. It flashed and vanished instantly, escaping from the absolute space of the 4 stone giants. Worthy of being an immortal emperor-grade external esoteric treasure. Seeing the Azure Heaven Immortal Bridge carry Xianxia and the others away, Li Qiye said regretfully. Once this treasure fled, even his 4 war stone guards couldn't stop it. Wipe out the rest. As for the Holy Heaven sect disciples who couldn't escape, Li Qiye glanced at them lightly and commanded. As the order was given, the 4 stone giants attacked once more. At this moment, the abandoned Holy Heaven sect disciples were desperate. Among them were not only powerhouses of the Holy Heaven sect, but also heroes, marquises, and even true persons. But at this moment, no matter how powerful they were, they couldn't break out. Kill. In their despair, the abandoned Holy Heaven sect disciples roared hysterically, wanting to break the encirclement and escape. However, under the colossal palms of the 4 stone giants, stars shattered, and the great Tao was severed. No matter how powerful the Holy Heaven sect disciples were, they couldn't escape. Following bursts of screams, blood rained down everywhere. Ah! Desperate, sorrowful screams echoed throughout the heaven and earth. Countless corpses fell from the sky. The Holy Heaven sect's iron cavalry had arrived with immense confidence, originally intending to destroy the cleansing incense ancient sect. But in the end, they were the ones being slaughtered by the cleansing incense ancient sect. This is a massacre. At this moment, many great figures observing the battle from afar felt a chill throughout their bodies, cold sweat streaming down. No one knew where these 4 stone giants came from. The terrifying level of these 4 stone giants caused even those reclusive elders to change their expressions. Such existences could truly slaughter even those old eccentrics. As for what powerhouses, heroes, or marquises they were simply not worth mentioning. Is this the heritage of an imperial lineage immortal gate? Some sect masters and demon kings were pale, muttering. The decline of the cleansing incense ancient sect was a universally acknowledged fact. In everyone's view, the cleansing incense ancient sect was fundamentally unable to withstand the Holy Heaven sect. Yet, today, the Holy Heaven sect, which was supposed to attack the cleansing incense ancient sect, was instead being exterminated by the cleansing incense ancient sect. Good, 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 well done on the killing. At this moment, the disciples and personnel of the cleansing incense ancient sect were all excited and thrilled. They originally thought they would only bloodily fight to the death when the Holy Heaven sect attacked them. Instead, they got to witness the slaughter of the Holy Heaven sect with their own eyes. The most excited was the Sun-Will Demon Emperor. One must know that the 4 stone giants were the guardian gods of their 9 Saint Demon Gate, but the 9 Saint Demon Gate fundamentally didn't know how powerful the 4 stone giants were. Today, with the 4 stone giants taking action, the Sun-Will Demon Emperor was finally moved. This was the true heritage of their 9 Saint Demon Gate. With these 4 stone giants protecting them, it would be difficult for their 9 Saint Demon Gate to collapse. Today, he truly saw the invincibility of their 9 Saint Demon Gate's guardian gods. No wonder their ancestral master left behind the 4 stone giants to protect their 9 Saint Demon Gate. Ah! In an instant, all the abandoned Holy Heaven sect disciples were exterminated in one massacre. Blood stained the earth, and corpses were scattered everywhere. The more than 10,000 iron cavalry of the Holy Heaven sect came in force, but in the end, less than half of the disciples escaped via the Azure Heaven Immortal Bridge. The rest were all slaughtered here. In a short while, the area inside and outside the cleansing incense ancient sect became extremely quiet. Everyone held their breath, not daring to even gasp. The 4 war stone guards, the 4 war bronze chariot. At this moment, even Mushin looked at the 4 stone guards surrounding Li Qiye's chariot and couldn't help but mutter. He had heard his senior brother mention this legend. It was rumored that the 4 war bronze chariot was the supreme mount, and the 4 war stone guards once cleared the path for it. Legend says that in a distant era, when the 4 war bronze chariot traveled, and the 4 war stone guards cleared the way, even deities had to yield, and even immortal emperors had to personally welcome it. However, he never expected that the 4 war stone guards and the 4 war bronze chariot would appear today. What was more terrifying was that they were actually subservient to a young disciple of the cleansing incense ancient sect. This was something unbelievable, truly unimaginable. Even Mushin didn't understand why a young disciple of the cleansing incense ancient sect like Li Qiye could command the legendary 4 war bronze chariot and the 4 war stone guards. One must know that even a legendary figure like him couldn't control such items. Go back. Li Qiye sighed deeply in his heart. Since he brought the 4 war stone guards out of that place, they had always followed him. Later, as a reward for the meritorious services of the 9 Saint Great Sage, he specifically gifted the 4 war stone guards to be the guardian gods of the 9 Saint Demon Gate. Since then, the 4 war stone guards had been slumbering in the earth veins of the 9 Saint Demon Gate, nourishing themselves with the earth veins' spiritual energy while asleep. OM. With a sound, the 4 war stone guards instantly pierced the void and vanished. Even though the 9 Saint Demon Gate was far from here, this distance was nothing to existences like them. Inside the 9 Saint Demon Gate, everyone, from the elders and protectors to the supreme elders, was stunned by the sudden departure of the 4 stone giants. They thought some major change had occurred, but after a short while, the 4 stone giants returned. They had no idea what had happened. In fact, even the people of the cleansing incense ancient sect at the scene didn't know the specifics. They didn't know what kind of existences the 4 stone giants were. Only Nan Huiran and Protector Mo knew the most clearly. As for the outsiders observing, they all changed their expressions. Many powerhouses mistakenly believed this was the heritage of the cleansing incense ancient sect, the guardian gods of the cleansing incense ancient sect. Didn't the legendary guardian gods of the cleansing incense ancient sect go missing? Why did these 4 stone giants appear? Someone muttered. At this moment, the hearts of the powerhouses from all the great sects and ancient kingdoms sank. An imperial lineage immortal gate was indeed unfathomable. Even in its decline, the cleansing incense ancient sect still possessed such terrifying and powerful heritage. No wonder the Holy Heaven sect didn't dare to attack the cleansing incense ancient sect for nearly 30,000 years. At this time, some heroes and marquises speculated in their hearts. At this moment, Mushin slowly opened his mouth and said, "Everyone disperse. That's all for today." As soon as Mushin spoke, many powerhouses watching couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. They felt like they had been granted a great pardon. Even those reclusive elders hurriedly left, departing this place at the fastest speed. Today was truly too shocking for the entire great territory. After the news of today spread, it would cause astonishing waves. Previously, countless people coveted the imperial arts of the cleansing incense ancient sect, but now, no matter how powerful the ancient kingdom or great sect was, they would shiver in their hearts. At this moment, there were probably very few people who dared to scheme for the imperial arts of the cleansing incense ancient sect. Leaving aside the heritage of the 4 stone giants of the cleansing incense ancient sect, just the support of the War God Temple, with an ancestor of the War God Temple personally appearing for the cleansing incense ancient sect, was enough to make all sects in the great territory wary. No one wanted to be an enemy of the War God Temple. Mushin's arrival at the cleansing incense ancient sect was welcomed with the highest possible formality by everyone in the sect. For Gutiesho and the elders and protectors of the cleansing incense ancient sect, Today was the most tense and exciting day of their lives. Even Gu Tiesho, who had experienced many storms, couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat on his forehead, welcoming Mushin with the highest level of respect. For Gu Tiesho and the cleansing incense ancient sect, let alone an ancestor of the war god temple like Mushin, even an elder-level figure like Elder Jiang would ordinarily be someone the cleansing incense ancient sect wasn't qualified to meet. Today, an ancestor of the war god temple personally came, showing support for the cleansing incense ancient sect. What an honor this was for everyone in their cleansing incense ancient sect. Gu Tiesho and the elders also understood that the war god temple and Mushin were willing to support and stand up for the cleansing incense ancient sect because of Li Qiye. Mushin's arrival at the cleansing incense ancient sect did not involve much conversation with Gu Tiesho and the others. He wanted to speak with Li Qiye privately. Even a figure like the Sun Will Demon Emperor could only wait by Elder Zhang's side. As for Gu Tiesho and the others, they were not qualified to participate in this level of meeting. However, Li Xuangan and Qin Baojiao were allowed to remain by Li Qiye's side. On Solitary Peak, inside the room, Li Qiye was calm and at ease. He glanced at Mushin opposite him and said lightly, "I heard you've been quite uncomfortable recently." Mushin gave a forced smile. Even a figure who had dominated the world like him, a figure that many great sects and ancient kingdoms under heaven were wary of, couldn't put on any airs in front of Li Qiye at this moment. "It concerns the life and death of our ancestor, so we can't help but be overly concerned and agitated," Mushin said. Despite this, Mushin was still very happy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have personally come to stand up for the cleansing incense ancient sect. "Since your old man returned alive, shouldn't my transaction item have been retrieved for me?" Li Qiye was too lazy to waste words. He waved his hand and said lightly. Li Xuangan and Qin Baojiao, who were by Li Qiye's side, were both internally shaken, quite moved. They had personally witnessed the war god temple's ancient coffin being buried in the netherworld boat. They never expected the war god temple's ancestor to return alive so quickly. In fact, the Sun Will Demon Emperor standing by the side was also shaken and excited. Li Qiye was truly successful. This was simply unimaginable. He chose the right person. He knew for sure that he absolutely didn't misjudge him. The Sun Will Demon Emperor took a deep breath. Their 9 Saint Demon Gate could be said to have gone all out in this transaction. He even gambled the entire fortune of the 9 Saint Demon Gate, and even gambled himself. His gamble was that he absolutely didn't misjudge the person. He trusted his own judgment. In this transaction, the 9 Saint Demon Gate seemed to have gained no direct benefit, but the Sun Will Demon Emperor was extremely excited. Although the 9 Saint Demon Gate gained no direct benefit from this transaction, they gained incredibly astonishing indirect benefits. To have an ancestor of the war god temple personally appear and support them, this was something he wouldn't have dared to imagine before. Even if their 9 Saint Demon Gate tried hard, they couldn't get an ancestor of the war god temple to personally protect the 9 Saint Demon Gate, but today, their 9 Saint Demon Gate had secured this opportunity. All of this was because of Li Qiye. It was difficult for the Sun Will Demon Emperor not to be excited. The benefit gained today was due to his keen eye for recognizing talent. Both were great emperors. The Baozheng Human Emperor secured the support of the Azure Mystery Ancient Kingdom, and the Sun Will Demon Emperor secured the support of the War God Temple. There was no doubt that today, the Sun Will Demon Emperor was the more successful one. At this moment, Mushin took out a treasure box and handed it to Li Qiye. After Li Qiye received it, he opened it and saw 3 keys lying quietly inside. Li Xuangan and Qin Baojiao, standing behind Li Qiye, were stunned. This transaction could be called a massive deal. For the longevity extension of a supreme figure in the War God Temple, even they thought Li Qiye's item would be a supreme treasure, perhaps even an immortal emperor-grade treasure. Instead, they didn't expect it to be 3 keys. It is this item. Li Qiye looked at the 3 keys and was quite satisfied. In fact, he had wanted these 3 keys before, but the War God Temple had always guarded them like treasures. This time, the war god temple was finally desperate enough to agree to use the 3 keys for the transaction. Before our ancestor entered the time blood stone slumber, he conveyed a message to young Master Li. I wonder if young Master Li is interested in joining the hidden immortal hall. At this moment, Mushin spoke seriously and solemnly. Hearing these words, the Sun Will Demon Emperor was deeply shaken, gasping sharply. Joining the hidden immortal hall was simply unimaginable. Even the most talented disciples of the war god temple did not have such qualifications. The ancestors of the hidden immortal hall were always slumbering and fundamentally did not accept disciples. Accept me as a disciple? Li Qiye chuckled, shook his head, and said, your hidden immortal hall is indeed extraordinary, and I know that the items hidden in your hidden immortal hall are coveted by the world. However, I don't like being bound by the pile of stale rules of your war god temple. Furthermore, living alongside old men like you, who knows, one day I might become rigid and archaic too. Young Master Li. This opportunity is one in a million years. At this moment, the Sun Will Demon Emperor couldn't help but advise. Such an opportunity was truly something no one could refuse. One must know that the hidden immortal hall was the most mysterious and feared existence within the war god temple. If given the chance to join the hidden immortal hall, no one would ever refuse. If the hidden immortal hall were to recruit him, he would willingly join the hidden immortal hall immediately. I know what kind of existence the hidden immortal hall is, but I'm still not interested. Li Qiye smiled slightly at the Sun Will Demon Emperor, shaking his head. The Sun Will Demon Emperor couldn't help but smile bitterly. Comparing people truly makes one frustrated. For people all over the world, joining the hidden immortal hall was something they wished for but couldn't get, yet Li Qiye fundamentally didn't want it. If young Master Li is interested, how about becoming a nominal disciple of our war god temple? Not restricted by our war god temple's rules. I believe young Master Li always has needs that our war god temple can fulfill. Mushin did not give up and offered Li Qiye another condition. You finally understand. At this moment, Li Qiye's eyes narrowed. He looked at Mushin and slowly said, I am somewhat interested in that condition of yours. Hearing Li Qiye's words, Mushin was delighted. How could the war god temple be willing to let go of a talent like Li Qiye? To them, Li Qiye was absolutely worth the investment. If young Master Li becomes a nominal disciple of our war god temple is willing to guard the Tao for young Master Li. Mushin offered the condition to Li Qiye. Li Qiye gently waved his hand, shaking his head and saying, guarding the Tao is unnecessary. How about we make an exchange? I will be listed as a nominal disciple of your war god temple. After I travel the 9 heavens and bear the heavens will, a portion of the future glory will belong to your war god temple. In my era, I will protect your war god temple. I promise that in the future, if a time comes when your war god temple is archaic and decaying, I will lend your war god temple a helping hand. In return, I need people from your war god temple. Although the old men of your war god temple are a bit archaic, one must admit that your method of nurturing and educating is truly excellent, forming its own complete system. How about my cleansing incense ancient sect borrowing a few old men to teach the younger generation of my cleansing incense ancient sect a little? Li Qiye looked at Mushin and slowly said, such a deal is absolutely worthwhile for you. The Sun Will Demon Emperor couldn't help but be shaken. What immense confidence! At this moment, Li Qiye dared to speak of ascending to the 9 heavens and bearing the heavens will. One must know that in every era, there is only one immortal emperor, and only one person in the world can hold the heavens will. Mushin looked at Li Qiye, remaining silent. For a moment, everyone looked at Mushin. After all, no young person had ever spoken such terms to an ancestor of the war god temple. Finally, Mushin slowly placed a token on the table and slowly pushed it towards Li Qiye, saying, this is the command token of our war god temple. There are only a few such tokens. How about we increase the stakes a bit? Our war god temple has sufficient resources, we can fully support you. What our war god temple wants is not much. When you bear the heaven's will and ascend to the peak in the future, you leave behind one immortal physique art, one emperor artifact, and one thread of karma. How does that sound? Mushen's words caused the hearts of the Sun Will Demon Emperor and the others to tremble. Today, Li Qiye was still a junior, yet Mushen was making such a gamble. This was truly unbelievable. Could it be that Mushen truly believed Li Qiye could ascend to the peak and bear the heaven's will in the future? At this moment, even Elder Jiang couldn't help but gasp. This gamble was perhaps too grand. As an external elder of the War God Temple, Elder Jiang carefully reconsidered. Li Qiye could actually arrange the burial on the Netherworld boat, extending their ancestors' longevity. This was likely not luck, likely not a coincidence. Choosing a lifeboat among tens of thousands of Netherworld boats, how easy was that to say? Now, upon careful consideration, things were probably not that simple. Perhaps Li Qiye was worth the investment. You must know that immortal physique arts are divided into several types. Some immortal physique arts are priceless. Li Qiye gently shook his head and said, even an imperial art cannot be more precious than an immortal physique art. Mushen slowly said, my War God Temple's requirement is not high. When you truly ascend to the peak and bear the heaven's will, the immortal physique art we want doesn't need to be priceless, only complete and intact is sufficient. I also know there are several types of immortal physique arts in the world, but my War God Temple can fully support you. Li Qiye's eyes narrowed. Immortal physique arts are indeed divided into several types. Some immortal physique arts were created by immortal emperors, some were created by those who couldn't achieve the position of immortal emperor, and some were created by invincible existences who achieved great completion of their immortal physiques. Naturally, the immortal physique arts in his hands were the #1 immortal physique arts in the world, the priceless treasures of the world. Often, the value of an emperor artifact is not necessarily higher than an immortal physique art. Because immortal physique arts are rarer than emperor artifacts in the world. If you say so, I am somewhat inclined. My cleansing incense. Ancient sect truly needs some resources to sustain itself. Li Qiye squinted and said. For Li Qiye, his supreme immortal physique arts could not be used for transaction. However, he happened to know some other immortal physique arts in the world. Although they weren't in his current memory, one day he could find those immortal physique arts created by others. In that case, we have a deal. Mushen looked at Li Qiye and handed the token to him. The War God Temple has stood firm since ancient times until now. They have ancient arts, imperial arts, and even immortal emperor true artifacts. But what they desired even more was the immortal physique art. Li Qiye nodded, finally saying slowly. This is acceptable. When I ascend to the peak and bear the heaven's will, all these things will be there. Li Qiye made this transaction not for himself, but for the cleansing incense ancient sect. He couldn't spend too much time on cultivating the cleansing incense ancient sect, so he needed a lineage with strength and experience like the War God Temple to provide support. In the aspect of cultivating disciples, the War God Temple was indeed very skilled. Finally, Mushen and Li Qiye finalized the agreement. Li Qiye used his true fate to affirm the promise, and Mushen finalized the agreement in the name of the War God Temple. This time I emerged into the mortal world. I have remained outside for long enough. After this return, I'm afraid I will once again seal my blood and suspend my longevity, sealing myself in the time blood stone. As Mushen was leaving, he said to Li Qiye, however, the War God Temple can still satisfy your requests. In the future, you can contact Elder Jiang directly with any requests. People like Mu Shen, who lived through various eras, fundamentally could not live this long purely on their own. They could only use the time blood stone to seal themselves, suspend their longevity, and hide themselves away. An ancestor like Mu Shen, emerging once, had an unimaginable price to pay. This time, Mushen was willing to emerge to bury their ancestor. It was precisely because of this that Mushen finalized the negotiations with Li Qiye before he sealed himself in the time blood stone. Li Qiye was absolutely worth the War God Temple support. For a person like Mushen, time was gold. He didn't want to delay any longer. After finalizing the negotiations, he immediately left with Elder Jiang. When Gu Tieshou and the others learned that the War God Temple would send people to guide the disciples of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect, the elders and protectors of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect were incredibly excited. For the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect, although their resources were still insufficient today, what the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect lacked most was good mentors. Although the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect lost many imperial arts, they had a large number of great sage and saint sovereign cultivation methods. This was enough for the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect to grow stronger, provided they had good mentors to guide them. Now, the War God Temple would not only send good mentors to cultivate the disciples of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect, but also infuse resources into the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. How could this not shock Gu Tieshou and the others? This is simply too unbelievable. This is simply unimaginable. After meeting Li Qiye, Gu Tieshou was somewhat speechless. He knew this must have been something Li Qiye secured for the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. Even so, it still shook the elders and protectors of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. Compared to the excitement of Gu Tieshou and the others, Li Qiye was tranquil and leisurely. He simply said slowly, "Even if the War God Temple supports us greatly, there will be a limit. The War God Temple's resources cannot be freely demanded by us. The War God Temple's mentors cannot eternally be stationed at our Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. For our Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect, the War God Temple's support is merely an opportunity for us to rise, a foundation. But our true strength still depends on ourselves. If we want to sweep across the world and have a profound heritage, all these things ultimately rely on us, on our own exploration and effort. If we merely rely on the War God Temple, we are just dependents. If we want to become a powerful lineage, everything ultimately requires our own effort." Li Qiye spoke slowly and calmly, yet his demeanor was solemn, and his words were filled with imposing ambition. Li Qiye's words were like an ancient bell, immediately shocking the excited heart of Gu Tieshou, instantly bringing him back to clarity. Li Qiye was right. The War God Temple could not unconditionally support the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect forever. If their Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect wanted to truly become powerful, they ultimately needed to rely on themselves. I will definitely remember these words. And the disciples of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect will also remember them. At this time, Gu Tieshou was much more sober. Li Qiye's words instantly woke him up. Very good. Li Qiye nodded. Although Gu Tieshou was older than him, he was still someone worth awakening. Even if he could never again reach the great sage realm in this lifetime, he still had room for growth. Furthermore, Gu Tieshou was a far-sighted individual in the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. Because of this matter, Gu Tieshou held a night-long meeting, summoning all the elders and protectors of the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. Throughout this night, everyone in the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect was invigorated, filled with ambition and endless fighting spirit, all possessing the heroic ambition to revive the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. The Sun Will Demon Emperor stayed as a guest at the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect for several days. As he was leaving, the Sun Will Demon Emperor said to Li Qiye with utmost solemnity, "As long as young Master Li speaks the word, no matter what the matter is, my 9 Saint Demon Gate will definitely render all assistance and give our full effort." Even Mushin was willing to support Li Qiye, let alone his 9 Saint Demon Gate. For the Sun Will Demon Emperor, no one was more worth investing in than Li Qiye. Towards the Sun Will Demon Emperor's earnest words, Li Qiye smiled. He did not refuse. If others had the sincerity to befriend him, he was happy to form an alliance. With the support of the War God Temple, Li Qiye was even more at ease regarding the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. He wanted to embark on his own journey and no longer worry about every matter concerning the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. After Li Xuangan and Chen Baojiao officially entered closed-door cultivation, Li Qiye began his journey to the Eastern Barren Territory. Li Qiye retrieved Su Yuha's ancient coffin from the gazing back peak and began his journey to the Eastern Barren Territory. When Li Qiye left, Nan Huairan and Niufan both wanted to follow. However, Li Qiye did not take them with him. Li Qiye imparted the true interpretation to Niufan. Niufan's loyalty could completely withstand the test, so Li Qiye imparted the true interpretation to him. In the future, the cleansing incense ancient sect would need an ox-head ancestor such as Niufan. Just as the guardian gods were once the protective deities of the cleansing incense ancient sect. As a zealous follower, Nan Huairan naturally hoped to follow by Li Qiye's side, serving as an attendant to carry out tasks for Li Qiye. However, Li Qiye this time intended to walk his own path. The Great Tao was long, and he did not want Nan Huairan to accompany him. The Eastern Barren Territory was simply too far from the Central Great Territory, spanning billions and billions of miles. Traveling completely on foot or by flight, one wouldn't know which year they would reach the Eastern Barren Territory. For this reason, the cleansing incense ancient sect spared no expense in utilizing a large amount of essence stones, opening a Tao gate to transport Li Qiye to the Eastern Barren Territory. The moment he stepped onto the territory of the Eastern Barren Territory, Li Qiye immediately headed to a certain place. The first thing he had to do was to bury Su Yuha's remains in a specific location. This was something he had promised Su Yuha. Deep in the Green Mountains, a barren wasteland. Weeds and wild grass grew everywhere. Here, there were only birds and wild beasts, no trace of human footsteps. Below a low hill, there was surprisingly an old peach tree. The peach tree was nearly dead from old age, yet it stubbornly grew. Here, its roots, ancient and deep from countless years of growth, plunged deeply into the earth, sprouting tender branches. The old peach tree looked like it did not have much time left, as if it could die of old age at any moment. But if one knew how to discern, carefully observing the base of the peach tree would reveal traces of lightning scorching the roots. This was a heavenly punishment. Ultimately, it couldn't achieve the Great Tao's completion. Heaven was intolerant. Looking at the lightning scorch marks on the roots of the old peach tree, Li Qiye muttered. Next. I wonder how many years it will take. A seemingly ordinary old peach tree. There were too many of Li Qiye's memories here. Who would know that this old peach tree was once blessed by an immortal emperor? Who would know that an immortal emperor once lectured scriptures to this old peach tree? Li Qiye, as the Dark Crow, after taking immortal Emperor Ming Ren as his disciple, once stayed here for a long period of time. Beneath this old peach tree, he guided immortal Emperor Ming Ren to enter the sect, introducing him to the long path of cultivation, until later when he took immortal Emperor Ming Ren out of this sky. Under this peach tree, there were years when immortal Emperor Ming Ren sweated from arduous cultivation, and also times when immortal Emperor Ming Ren smiled happily. Li Qiye, as the Dark Crow, once stood upon this old peach tree. Later, immortal Emperor Ming Ren bore the heaven's will and achieved the position of immortal emperor. He once came here, once opened the spiritual wisdom of this old peach tree, once lectured scriptures to this old peach tree, once hoped that one day this old peach tree, a contemporary of his, would shed its mortal form and be reborn with his complete Great Tao. But achieving the Great Tao through the form of a tree, how easy was that to say? This was met with the heaven's intolerance. Therefore, the old peach tree suffered more than one heavenly punishment since a distant era, struggling until the present. Although this peach tree couldn't achieve the Great Tao, it still survived. Until now. Finally, Li Qiye dug a grave under the old peach tree, placing Su Yuha's ancient coffin within. After placing the ancient coffin inside, Li Qiye sighed softly, placing the ancient zither inside the coffin and saying, "This zither followed the little Ming Ren his entire life. Now, let it be buried here with you. This place was once the birthplace of the little Ming Ren. Consider it leaves returning to the root." Su Yuha's final lingering thought was to be buried here. This place held too many happy moments of immortal Emperor Ming Ren, too much of immortal Emperor Ming Ren's reluctance. After immortal Emperor Ming Ren bore the heaven's will and achieved the position of immortal emperor, even Su Yuha's wisp of lingering thought rarely saw him smile happily. Although he was an immortal emperor, he no longer possessed the joy of his youth, nor the sunniness of his youth. especially after Li Qiye, as the dark crow, entered slumber and disappeared. The person Immortal Emperor Ming Ren talked about the most was still that old peach tree. He never forgot this old peach tree, for it held much of his emotional attachment. It was precisely because of this that the wisp of lingering thought did not want to disperse for a long time. Her final wish was to be buried beneath this old peach tree. At this moment, the wisp of lingering thought appeared again. Su Yuha's silhouette once again emerged from the ancient coffin. She bowed to Li Qiye and said, "Lord Dark Crow has buried me a second time. This humble woman is infinitely grateful. Enough, this thread of karma arose because of me, so let it be concluded by me as well." Li Qiye sighed softly and said, "Go now. There is nothing left in the world for you to cling to. You should not continue to be a wisp of lingering thought. Disperse without any burden, return to the heaven and earth." Su Yuha bowed, lifting a vase from inside the coffin. She offered it to Li Qiye and said, "The earth beneath the cleansing incense ancient sect is ominous. I hope this vase can assist Lord Dark Crow in the future." Li Qiye gently accepted the vase, nodding and saying, "Let all karma disperse. Rest now." Su Yuha bowed deeply. When she lay down in the ancient coffin, multicolored light scattered. The wisp of lingering thought that once formed Su Yuha now finally dispersed between heaven and earth without any burden. This wisp of lingering thought completely vanished. There was no longer Su Yuha in the world. In the world, the only one who remembered this name was likely Li Qiye. Li Qiye sighed softly. He buried the ancient coffin deep beneath the old peach tree. Standing under the old peach tree, Li Qiye couldn't help but feel melancholy. Indeed, under the old peach tree here, the little Ming Ren was such an optimistic and passionate boy. Regrettably, everything changed afterward, because of the heavenly Tao, because of that innocent to the point of stupidity woman, because of the Su female general, and also because of him, the Tao teacher, the Dark Crow. Although he bore the heaven's will and was invincible in the 9 worlds, Immortal Emperor Ming Ren was no happier than in his youth. Finally, Li Qiye breathed a soft sigh, gently stroking the old peach tree. He finally turned and left. It was likely that he would never come to this place again. After Li Qiye walked away, the scattered multicolored light beneath the old peach tree was absorbed by the old peach tree. Unconsciously, the old peach tree grew tender branches, like a dead tree encountering spring, radiating life once more. The Eastern Barren Territory's bustling atmosphere was comparable to the Central Great Territory. Furthermore, the Eastern Barren Territory was as prosperous as the Central Great Territory. The origin of the Eastern Barren Territory's name was simple. According to legend, in the east of the human emperor world, there were 100 extremely ancient cities, so the east of the human emperor world was named the Eastern Barren Territory, Dongbaicheng. Although the Central Great Territory's area was vast, it was sparsely populated. However, the Eastern Barren Territory was different. It had countless cities and flourishing life. In the human emperor world, the Eastern Barren Territory was the largest base for the human race. Even quite a few other races gathered in the Eastern Barren Territory. The Eastern Barren Territory was once considered the origin place of the human race. Legend says that in the Desolate Era, the human race began to take root here. Afterward, they endured the era of the 100 Races' Great Wilderness War, then the dark era of the ancient underworld. And finally the era of the various emperors' promises and agreements, right up to the present. The human race firmly took root here. In the era of the emperors, it goes without saying that this was the domain of the human race. It could even be said that the human race spread to other places in the human emperor world, originating from the Eastern Barren Territory. In the Eastern Barren Territory, there are many ancient lineages, countless powerful ancient kingdoms, great sects, holy lands, and ancient sects with profound heritage. Such as the Long River Sect, Heavenly Tao Academy, Yaoguang Ancient Kingdom, Bingyu Palace, and so on. These were all powerful and ancient imperial lineage immortal gates. It could be said that in terms of ancient heritage and imperial lineage, immortal gates, the Central Great Territory was indeed incomparable to the Eastern Barren Territory. Countless immortal emperors of the human race originated from the Eastern Barren Territory. Even the founding ancestor of the cleansing incense ancient sect, Immortal Emperor Mingren, also originated from the Eastern Barren Territory. Li Qiye walked in the Eastern Barren Territory. In this vast east, there were countless cities and overlapping ancient mountain ranges. The entire Eastern Barren Territory had an immense area. Li Qiye walked step by step on this great land, cultivating and contemplating the Tao as he went. Stepping into the mundane world, walking through places he once lived, Li Qiye walked step by step, cultivating the Tao and recalling old memories. Many places were filled with his memories. Throughout the ages, with countless years of flux, he had visited the Eastern Barren Territory again and again. In the ancestral land of the human race, the origin place of the human race, in these places he had once found promising seedlings, once nurtured invincible figures, and once brought corpses to be buried in the Eastern Barren Territory. For Li Qiye, the Dark Crow, an existence of countless years, the Eastern Barren Territory held too many joys and sorrows, partings and reunions. Years are merciless, mountains and rivers change. Some ancient cities of the past have turned into ruins. Some majestic peaks have become bustling cities. Some rivers have dried up, and some lands have collapsed. Li Qiye slowly walked, passing through each place. As he walked, he cultivated. This was not only a recollection but also a driving force for himself, allowing him to immerse himself in a purer state of heroic years. In an extremely prosperous ancient city, Li Qiye walked into a small alley. However, this place was already a patch of ruins. In the past, this place was once a vast and enormous family. Once a Tao lineage that had been passed down for countless years. Regrettably, it ultimately could not withstand the erosion of time, eventually turning into ashes and ruins. Standing in these ruins, Li Qiye sighed softly. Once, in the great wilderness era, he had a battle general who followed him to sweep across the 9 heavens and 10 earths, once sweeping across the 8 desolates. After achieving success, he retreated and finally established an extremely powerful lineage here. Regrettably, with infinite time and endless years, this once immensely powerful lineage also turned into ashes and smoke. In a vast river, Li Qiye walked alone upstream. He finally stopped at the head of the river, sitting quietly at a corner, watching the river flow slowly. Li Qiye was in deep contemplation. Who would know that deep inside this place, an invincible and terrifying existence was buried? Back then, the 4-war bronze chariot was once by his side, and the female servant by his side once drew a sword, shaking the 9 worlds. At that time, the female servant by his side once commanded 10,000 laws for him. The years were too long, and time was too merciless. The ultimately earth-shattering battle concluded. Everything blew away with the wind. Everything aged with it. The sword attendant who once followed him to conquer the 9 heavens and 10 earths. A woman who was loyal to him her entire life. She did not wish to live on faintly like others in later generations. She wished to leave this world with the most peerless demeanor and carefree attitude. Finally, he buried his lifelong sword attendant in the place where they first met. In that era, who would know that the goddess who shook the 9 worlds with a single sword was once a fisherman's girl? Because she was nurtured by a dark crow, she eventually became the goddess who shook the 9 worlds with a single sword. The leaves return to the root. For me, it is a distant hope. Finally, Li Qiye looked at the quiet bend of the river. The existence buried deep within had rested for 10,000 ages. Finally, Li Qiye turned and left. In the mountain ranges, on the majestic peaks, Li Qiye quietly stood on a broken pillar. This place was once a vast and prosperous city. Regrettably, time was merciless. Now, this place had become majestic peaks with trees reaching the sky. Scenes of the red heaven of those years flashed in his mind. This was the place where he first met Empress Hong Tian. Not long after, at that time, she was merely a stubborn little girl. Who would know that she later became an invincible figure in the 9 heavens and 10 earths, the 6 Taos and 8 desolates. As the Dark Crow, as an existence that has experienced the flux of ages, Li Qiye had nurtured many invincible figures. He had nurtured more than one immortal emperor in his hands, but the most stunning person was still Empress Hong Tian. The rise of one generation's empress, even concluding the colossal Heaven Emperor Gate. This was a sect with 4 emperors, a lineage spanning 4 eras. Even the flying immortal sect dared not contend with the Heaven Emperor Gate at that time. Such a Heaven Emperor Gate, commanding the 9 worlds and invincible in the 6 Daos, was ultimately concluded in the hands of Empress Hong Tian. Especially a genius with the highest innate talent who became an immortal emperor also died in the hands of Empress Hong Tian. At that time, they once walked together, sharing much. But ultimately, because each had a different philosophy, because each pursued a different path, they went their separate ways, even turning against each other. Standing here, Li Qiye felt heavy-hearted. It seemed some things offered no other choice. He had his principles, and she had hers. Ultimately, they, who were once teacher and friend, still turned against each other, never to meet again. Why suffer so much? Finally, Li Qiye muttered. The ages are long. There will surely be a day when the seas dry and the rocks crumble, when the world transforms. Why suffer so? Finally, Li Qiye sighed mournfully and left this place. Empress Hong Tian was forever a legend, burying too many secrets unknown to the world behind her. Li Qiye walked while contemplating. Walking while cultivating. Traveling the mundane world, wandering the east, he was not only recollecting past experiences, but traveling between the heaven and earth also allowed him to immerse himself in a state of self-forgetfulness. Under this subtly profound state, he was steadily building his foundation. In these days, Li Qiye's heavenly origin realm had achieved great completion. He began to step into the spirit-nourishing realm. The spirit-nourishing realm is a turning point for cultivators. The moment one steps into the spirit-nourishing realm, they are considered to be among the ranks of the experts. A cultivator of this realm, even if a rogue cultivator, if they join another nation, would definitely receive rewards from that nation. Cultivators of this realm can be conferred the title of hero. In many nations, cultivators of this realm are welcomed. Even if they only enter as an affiliate, joining a nation, they can receive rewards. Some nations would even grant land, making that person a local magnate. Heroes and marquises can be said to be the current mainstream. During the difficult time for the Tao, the older generation's true persons and ancient saints have all gone into seclusion. As for the legendary Saint Venerables and Saint Sovereigns, they are even more hidden, taking refuge in the time-blood stone, unwilling to endure the erosion of time during the difficult time for the Tao. It is precisely because of this that, in the current era, heroes and marquises have become the mainstream. This era is their stage, especially since the difficult time for the Tao has not yet concluded. As Li Qiye traveled the eastern barren territory, he cultivated all the way. At the same time, he was also tempering his treasure artifact. In his second fate palace, the heaven and earth water gold, through his own refinement, had surprisingly been refined into a bow. The self-refinement of the heaven and earth water gold also moved Li Qiye. Furthermore, the extremely rapid formation of the bow was also something Li Qiye hadn't expected. This divine bow, formed through the heaven and earth water gold's self-refinement, was being nourished by Li Qiye in his second fate palace. Since then, this was also Li Qiye's first treasure artifact, the treasure artifact he personally nurtured. In fact, Li Qiye originally wanted to nurture the little hunchback's Tao bone in the second fate palace. Regrettably, the heaven and earth water gold was utterly dominant, seizing the second fate palace. Li Qiye gave a name to the divine bow formed by the heaven and earth water gold's self-refinement, 9 words true bow, Jiao Yuzhen Gong. This was a true bow formed from the supreme true words of heaven and earth. Before its successful formation, the heaven and earth water gold was high and mighty. After being heavily struck by the stone egg, it seemed to have become enlightened. After forming the true bow, Li Qiye consistently harmonized himself with it. And the 9 words true bow also acknowledged Li Qiye, accepting him as its master very smoothly. One must know that the 9 words true bow was formed by the heaven and earth water gold self-refinement and had developed sentience. This was a supreme true bow with the complete 9 true words. Such a weapon, regardless of its grade, was full of spirituality. How easy was it to make such a weapon accept a master? However, the 9 words True Bao seemed to have been knocked enlightened by the stone egg, obediently accepting him as master. As he traveled east, Li Qiye not only diligently cultivated his Tao foundation but also pondered the profoundness of the 9 words True Bao. After testing the power of the 9 words True Bao again and again, Li Qiye couldn't help but be moved. One must know that he had even wielded a vicious weapon like the immortal blood halberd. There were few things in the world that could excite him. But the 9 words True Bao moved Li Qiye. In the future, as long as he bore the heaven's will and achieved the immortal emperor position, this would definitely become his number 1. Bao. Li Qiye traveled east all the way, cultivating all the way, recalling all the way. One day, he arrived at a majestic mountain range. This place was sparsely populated. There was even an ancient ancestral hall. The ancestral hall was hidden within a clump of ancient trees. It had become ordinary, but looking at the terrain from a distance, one would know that this place was once prosperous. This ancestral hall once produced ancestors of immense power and influence. With moss-covered tiles and ancient bricks, the ancestral hall's carved pillars and wall carvings showed signs of weathering. Outside the ancestral hall, the weeds were even overgrown. It was clear that this ancestral hall had not been cared for in a long time. Creak. With a sound, Li Qiye pushed open the door of the ancestral hall and stepped inside. In the main hall, an immensely majestic stone statue was enshrined. It was an old man. Although the old man's statue hadn't been cleaned in a long time, one could still tell that he was imposing and influential in life, looking down on the 8 directions. The Qi family has also fallen. Looking at the incense burner in front of the statue, which hadn't been offered incense in who knows how long, Li Qiye said with emotion. This was the Qi family's ancestral hall, enshrining the Qi family's ancestors. One was once one of his strongest battle generals. The Immortal slaying campaign was too brutal. How many people died in that campaign? The sages of the human race fell one after another. Blood flowed like rivers, and corpses piled up like mountains. Many people by his side died in that campaign. Just like the Qi family's ancestor, he was once one of the strongest battle generals by his side, once a supreme existence. In the Immortal slaying campaign, to cover the rear, to guard his 4 war bronze chariots so that it could charge directly into the battlefield, the Qi family ancestor fought 10,000 enemies in a bloody battle, blocking round after round of furious sneak attacks for him. He ultimately protected him so he could charge straight into the heart of the battlefield. The campaign finally achieved victory, ensuring that the sacrifices of all the sages of the human race were not in vain. In this, the Qi family ancestor's merit was immensely great. In this campaign, the Qi family ancestor died on the Immortal slaying battlefield. Before the Qi family ancestor died, Li Qiye, as the Dark Crow, had once agreed to protect his Qi family for 3 generations of prosperity. Afterward, he brought the remains of the Qi family ancestor to the Qi family's ancestral land. The Qi family's next 3 generations were also protected by him, the Dark Crow, enjoying 3 generations of prosperity. After 100,000 years, coming here again today, looking at this dilapidated ancestral hall, Li Qiye saw that the Qi family, which he once protected for 3 generations, had also declined. Time is merciless. Just like the cleansing incense ancient sect, even an imperial lineage will one day decline. The years are ultimately merciless. Finally, Li Qiye looked at the old man's stone statue and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This was also one of his strongest battle generals, who established illustrious merit in the Immortal slaying campaign. Li Qiye looked at the stone statue for a moment, then left the ancestral hall. He slowly walked in this forest of ancient trees. Unconsciously, Li Qiye arrived in front of an ancient pond. Ah! A loud shout rang out. Even before Li Qiye reached the ancient pond, he heard such a loud shout from afar. In front of the ancient pond stood a young man. The young man's head was crowned by a Fate Palace. The Fate Palace opened, revealing a turtle shadow. At the same time, his entire body emanated light. The light radiating from his body was like an enraged lion, lunging towards the manifesting turtle shadow, biting the turtle shadow's head. The young man roared loudly. Finally, the light on his body disappeared. The Fate Palace returned to the Mud Palace aperture. At this moment, both the turtle and the enraged lion vanished completely. The young man seemed to have just experienced a fierce battle. His whole body was drenched, and he sat heavily on the ground, looking exhausted. Li Qiye, seeing this scene from afar, couldn't help but be surprised. He muttered, "It's been a long time since I've seen a person with such a fate thread." As he spoke, he walked towards the ancient pond. "Who is it?" Li Qiye's footsteps immediately startled the young man sitting by the pond. He instantly stood up, turning to stare at Li Qiye, and asked, "Who are you?" "Just passing by." Li Qiye smiled gently, looking at the young man before him. The young man looked a bit older than him, with a cheerful demeanor. He wore simple green clothing, looking particularly spirited. His eyes flashed with light, revealing a determined look. "Why did you come here? This isn't a scenic spot." The young man saw a stranger like Li Qiye and looked somewhat vigilant. Li Qiye couldn't help but smile, saying, "I've read many ancient books about the Eastern Barren Territory. It's said that 10 years of reading is not as good as traveling 1,000 miles. I came to the Eastern Barren Territory to see the ancient legends. There are records that this place was once the ancestral hall of the Qi family, so I came to check and see if it was really true." "So you were looking for the ancestral hall? I'll take you to see it." The young man immediately relaxed upon hearing Li Qiye's explanation. Li Qiye didn't look like a bad person either, and he felt quite favorable towards Li Qiye. The young man was quite enthusiastic, immediately leading Li Qiye to the ancestral hall. He chatted as they walked. "I'm Qi Xiaodao. What's your name? So you are a descendant of the Qi family?" Li Qiye couldn't help but smile, feeling surprised in his heart. He didn't expect to encounter a descendant of the Qi family. As he spoke, Li Qiye also stated his name. "Where are you from?" Qi Xiaodao was clearly a talkative person, already striking up a conversation with Li Qiye even though they had just met. "The Central Great Territory, a very distant place from here. I came out this time to see the world," Li Qiye said naturally and leisurely with a smile. "The Central Great Territory, ah." Qi Xiaodao was also surprised, becoming even more enthusiastic and engaging Li Qiye in conversation. A moment later, Li Qiye followed Qi Xiaodao back to the ancestral hall. Looking at the stone statue, Li Qiye glanced at Qi Xiaodao and smiled. "The ancestor of the Qi family. So the Qi family's ancestral hall is here." "That's right. This place worships our maternal ancestor." Qi Xiaodao couldn't help but sigh with emotion, looking at the statue. Li Qiye was momentarily stunned upon hearing this. He looked at Qi Xiaodao and asked, "Your maternal ancestor? But your surname is Qi, isn't it?" "That's right." Qi Xiaodao smiled and said, "My grandfather married into the Qi family. My grandfather's original surname wasn't Qi, but we all follow my grandmother's surname, so our surname is Qi. Moreover, my grandfather's family lineage was also very formidable a long time ago, no less than the Qi family. My grandfather's family ancestor was also an extraordinary figure. Legend says he was called the Supreme Immortal Lion King. It is rumored that he was once an invincible existence, and there are even legends that the old man achieved great completion of the immortal physique." Qi Xiaodao was also fond of talking, and in an instant, he even shared the history of his own family with Li Qiye. The Supreme Immortal Lion King. Hearing this, Li Qiye was also momentarily stunned. This world was too small. During the ancient Sky Corpse ground event, he had tricked the Supreme Immortal Saber from the Supreme Immortal Lion King, establishing a connection with the Supreme Immortal Lion King. He didn't expect to encounter his descendant now. What was even more speechless was that the descendant of the Supreme Immortal Lion King had become relatives with the descendant of his battle general. "You've also heard of my grandfather's family ancestor?" Qi Xiaodao asked happily. Li Qiye nodded and said, I've heard of him. The Supreme Immortal Lion King, a prominent figure in the era of Immortal Emperor Sun Devourer. Even with Immortal Emperor Sun Devourer in the world, he was still an extraordinary figure. Knowing that Qi Xiaodao's grandfather's ancestor was the Supreme Immortal Lion King, Li Qiye understood even more clearly what had just happened to Qi Xiaodao. This was a legendary conflict between fate thread and physique. Qi Xiaodao was even happier upon hearing Li Qiye's words. He said, "No wonder you enjoy reading ancient books about the Eastern Barren territory. It turns out you know so much about past history. My grandfather's ancestor, the Supreme Immortal Lion King, was formidable. In fact, my maternal ancestor was even more extraordinary. It is rumored that my maternal ancestor was once an invincible figure. Legend says he participated in a heaven-shaking war, saving the human race, and was once renowned for centuries." Mentioning the glorious deeds of his ancestors, Qi Xiaodao couldn't help but get excited, as if he could imagine the years when their ancestors swept across the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Yes, the Immortal Slaying Campaign. Li Qiye sighed softly and said, Yes, I think that's the name. I heard my maternal ancestor participated in such a campaign. But I don't know the specific name of the campaign. Qi Xiaodao said excitedly. You really know a lot. No wonder you came to visit my Qi family's ancestral hall. Indeed, reminiscing about the great heroes of the human race, recalling past glory. Li Qiye looked at the statue and said. The excited Qi Xiaodao couldn't help but look dejected. He sighed softly while looking at the statue, saying, Regrettably, neither my grandfather's family nor my Qi family are as powerful as they once were. My grandfather's family declined back then, which is why he came to the Eastern Barren territory. He eventually met my grandmother. They fell in love, and our ancestor only had my grandmother as a successor. The old man passed down the Lion Roar sect and the Lion Roar nation to my grandfather. Finally, my grandfather married into the Qi family. For Qi Xiaodao, he couldn't help but feel a little downhearted. Regardless of whether it was his Qi family or his grandfather's family, both were once extremely powerful lineages. Regrettably, today, his grandfather's family has completely declined. Although his Qi family still controls a territory, it is no longer as powerful as it was in the past. Time is merciless. Decline is also a common occurrence. No matter how powerful a lineage is, it will one day decline. Even an imperial lineage Immortal Gate cannot escape the day of decline. Li Qiye smiled, comforting him. Qi Xiaodao was a cheerful person. He raised his head and smiled, saying, That's true, but I hope one day I can revive our Qi family. As he spoke, he couldn't help but clench his fist, but thinking of his own situation, his expression couldn't help but turn dejected. Qi Xiaodao chatted with Li Qiye, then left the ancestral hall and walked towards the ancient pond. Li Qiye looked at Qi Xiaodao and smiled, asking, Are you staying here? No, I'm outside the mountain. Qi Xiaodao shook his head and said, I want to cultivate recently. Legend says my ancestor once cultivated at this ancient pond, and began his rise from here, eventually becoming an invincible existence. I want to return here to cultivate, to see if I can receive guidance from the heroic spirits, to gain some enlightenment, and break through my own constraints. I'm afraid your ancestors' heroic spirits can't guide you in your situation. Li Qiye smiled, shook his head, and said, I know a thing or two about your situation. You know. Qi Xiaodao immediately turned around, asking with shock. Li Qiye smiled and said, It's apparent that your cultivation is stuck at the spirit-nourishing realm. The most important aspect of the spirit-nourishing realm is studying the true fate, and using the physique to lift the longevity wheel. But your physique cannot suppress your true fate. When you cultivate, you cannot advance even half a step. You clearly feel a manic force erupting, suppressing your true fate, making your fate palace unable to circulate, and your blood energy stagnates, as if you are choking. How do you know? Qi Xiaodao's expression changed drastically, extremely shocked. Li Qiye spoke the exact situation he was facing, instantly pinpointing his critical problem. Li Qiye said, I told you, I love reading ancient books. I read all sorts of books, both miscellaneous and secret scrolls. Your situation, I once read about it in an ancient record. It's the legendary lion-turtle conflict, Shi Jiao Gui. When you mentioned your ancestors' history, I understood even more clearly. Your fate thread is a turtle, yet you have a lion's physique. Truthfully, it's rare to see a person whose fate palace has a specific attribute. Generally, if it has one, it's an imperial fate or a saint fate, but yours is a turtle fate. This situation is not common. And your grandfather's ancestor, the supreme immortal Lion King, had a lion's physique. An acquired supreme lion physique. It just so happens that your fate threads conflict with each other, the lion strangles the turtle. This causes your true fate to be unable to suppress your physique, which in turn restricts you at the spirit-nourishing realm. Li Qiye spoke lightly, as if everything was at his fingertips. Can it be cured? Hearing Li Qiye so clearly articulate his problem, Qi Xiaodao was instantly shaken. He looked at Li Qiye with great shock, regaining his composure, and asked urgently. Li Qiye pondered for a moment and said, I saw a method in another ancient alchemy book, which is to change the fate. Your fate is a turtle, unable to suppress the supreme lion physique. If you change your fate, elevating your fate to a higher level, the heavenly turtle fate, then it can suppress the supreme lion physique. Change the fate. Qi Xiaodao was momentarily stunned. He had heard of this concept, but such an idea was too distant from him. Changing fate is a legendary technique. Only legendary alchemists, or even alchemy emperors, can change a person's fate, because this is the most profound technique of the Tao of alchemy. Hearing this, Qi Xiaodao was like a deflated balloon. He felt weak all over and said with a wry smile, Changing fate, this is a legendary alchemy technique. Who in this world possesses such a technique? This is somewhat of a coincidence. Li Qiye said calmly and leisurely. I happen to cultivate some alchemy techniques. Perhaps I can change your fate. It's not impossible. Really? Hearing Li Qiye say this, Qi Xiaodao's spirit lifted, but recovering his senses, he looked at Li Qiye and couldn't help but ask cautiously. What conditions do you want? What do you want? Qi Xiaodao was as cautious as if he were guarding against a thief, which made Li Qiye chuckle and say, It seems you don't trust me, thinking I'm trying to trick you. Qi Xiaodao was a straightforward person. He smiled awkwardly and said, You and I just met by chance. It is indeed a bit too coincidental. I've sought out quite a few alchemists for my cultivation problem. I was terribly scammed by one young thief. He swindled a large amount of my medicinal ingredients and essence stones, yet he swore he could cure my problem. So, you can't blame me. Having been tricked once, I've learned to be wary. Thank you for listening to the story on KTN Storyverse. Please like and subscribe to support the channel.